Honestly, sometimes I just feel like Steam is built to scam me. Every time I open that store page and every time I look through what's on special, magically it happens to be the category I'm most interested in. Recently, Steam had Space Fest. And space, my god, is a category I really enjoy when it comes to gaming. So, what do? I get out my dollary dues and spend them on some great games. And today, we're going to be looking at one of them, SpaceBourne 2. I'll start this video by saying this game is essentially We Have Starfield at home. However, for anyone who's actually played Starfield, you'll know the last time you went out to have some Starfield, you didn't quite feel so good afterwards.
I read on the internet that our games have had a few bugs.
In this case, the home meal is a lot more nourishing and better for you in the long run. So let's go and explore SpaceBourne 2 and see what it has to offer. First of all, let me start by saying the game is early access, because which game isn't these days? I feel like every single game on the market today is either early access or you've never heard of it and it just comes out and it's a full game. That said, early access, which means that there's still plenty of improvement to be done to it, and from what I can see, consistent updates, with the last one being in June of this year. The other thing to consider is, because of this early access status, a lot of the current reviews or the recent reviews are mixed. It has about 3,600 reviews sitting at towards that very positive region. However, every time there's a sale on and a game goes on sale and people buy it, they tend to play it for 30 minutes and give it a bad review because they didn't like the color of one of the screens. What I usually like to do is go through quite a few of these reviews, look at how many hours people have played, and then base my opinion on that before I purchase a game, taking into account some of those standard things that you'd like to see. SpaceBourne Part 2. Embark on a journey to greatness. Get ready for adrenaline-fueled battles and a chance to claim your place in the galaxy. Grab the controls of your ship, gear up for fights, and unleash your ambition to conquer and build a new empire in the vastness of space, is what reads on the Steam page. That doesn't really give you a sense of what this game is about, so let's get into a bit more of those minute details, and should it be up your alley and something you'd like to support and purchase and see the development of, then you can do so through purchasing this fantastic little game. It's developed by Burak Debak, and believe it or not, it is developed and published by one guy. Yes, another game developed, published by one guy. That said, from what I understand, there's been a lot of contributions from the community. Generally, projects of this scale and mass get a lot of supporters from outside of the remit of just being a developer. However, Burak, I believe, has been the one sort of masterfully putting this in the right place. And given it's part 2, I'm assuming he cultivated some of this following when he built part 1. To be honest, I haven't really looked at part 1, so I'm not too sure. I'm assuming it ties into the storyline, which I'll get into a little bit of without giving too much away. The game itself is built up into a couple of different play styles that I've encountered so far. Firstly, there is a storyline and a quest. I believe it's a main quest line that I'm following. I don't think I'm giving too much away here by saying that you essentially start off by getting your character, going out and doing a job, and you put together this robot android thing who ends up becoming your companion and telling you that you need to follow in your father's footsteps. From there, I believe the game is open and you can continue on your merry little adventure. Yes, this is a space RPG, ladies and gentlemen, and like any other space RPG, you start off by creating a character. Now, let's be honest, graphics aren't AAA graphics here, but they aren't terrible either. Obviously has been some time taken here to make the game look somewhat nice, with HDR textures and lighting and bloom effects, which you'll see littered throughout the different areas you go to. That said, there's definitely room for improvement, and there's places where the Unreal Engine does some weird and quirky things, which I'm sure will be ironed out over this long, beautiful development journey that Burak will take this game through, including potentially fixing hair in photo mode, which was quite a funny little bug and seems to be a common theme on this channel now, with a few space games having issues with hair in low gravity. So creating your character, you start off obviously with the visual side of things, and then you get acquainted with your first interesting UI/menu. I think one of the reasons why some of the reviews were mixed for this game is due to the daunting features and daunting menus that you might come across. However, for those that are more acquainted with complex RPG systems and leveling systems, in particular sci-fi and space turn-based games, some of this stuff might come as second nature to you. From what I can see, there's 3 main skill lines, or skill trees in the more traditional sense. You've got your piloting skill tree, your mercenary skill tree, which is like your on-ground combat, and an adventurer skill tree, which is about exploration. Throughout these skill trees, you can level up multiple different statistics, and depending on what activity you're doing, your XP goes towards one of these skill trees, which can inherently be leveled up alongside perks being put into specific sides of the leveling. I like this. I like this system a lot. It kind of lets you create a very different character for your playthroughs. I don't know if you'll be eventually able to level out and max every single one of these skills. Right now, for example, when I was playing through it, I was just maxing out my damage because everyone knows big dick damage is the way to go.
Swordstorm, big dick. Everything is big dick, and it feels good the entire time.
You start off on a nice little dusty Star Wars planet. You've given a ship that's apparently not good enough to shoot things, yet you can go and shoot things with it, and a little basic tutorial to ensure that you know how to press WASD, which I think is great. I mean, I know that for a lot of us gamers, these tutorials are tedious, and you know, of course it's going to be WASD, and of course you're going to press this and press that. But let me tell you, the amount of games that you see instead of control for crouch or R to land versus V, these are important, guys. For someone who's played so many different games with different keys, sometimes it's just different, and sometimes they have different features too. So after the tutorial, you're basically given like your mainline story quest, as I said earlier, and you continue on through the gameplay. Very quickly, you get introduced to the game's main systems, in particular combat and flying your ship and moving around different points in the solar system. These are quite important to the gameplay aspect of things. Similar to the tutorial showing you how to fly your ship, it also goes through these systems and mechanics, and through the storyline explains to you how to utilize some of these things. I found this to be a really good way to introduce the game. It also was a lot of fun because you got to explore the different weapon types really early on without having to go and find loot and buy it from a vendor. The game kind of gives you these things to start off with. It doesn't really hold your hand, but it tells you enough and shows you enough to keep you interested. This is what I like. This is how I like games to be introduced, because it gives you a little taste of what's to come. What I'm not too sure about, and I haven't seen yet, is how do you level up that third skill, which is adventurer. There seems to be some things in the menus giving away that there's some sort of a scanning mini game or an exploration mini game, but my first 3 to 4 hours in, I still haven't come across this. That said, I also like to take my time and look at every little thing when I'm playing these games in the beginning, so it could be that I'm just playing it at a slower pace than most. By the end of the introductory quest, the game hints at starting to look at your different menus and reading through some of the information that might be available, and through here you realize that throughout your inventory system there's multiple tabs littered with different little things that you can actually have an in-depth look at. In particular, you can outfit your ship with different weapons, better weapons, lesser weapons, including selling those older weapons or buying new ones from markets within stations, and then it also gives you a hint to start looking for things called guilds. Guilds seem to be some sort of a political system in the background of this game. That's where I sort of left my introduction at, but I can tell that there's a lot of depth that potentially is in this guild system. The game suggests you go and join 2 guilds, and I believe through those systems you start to accumulate wealth, weapons, currency, influence over the game's solar systems, and from what I can see, potentially being able to build your own armies and build your own pilots to work for you, which is where I see a lot of the depth coming from and where the next probably 5 to 10 hours of my gameplay will be. That said, it looks like you can certainly just do things on your own as well and go out and complete missions and keep doing things the way you do things and have lots of fun doing so. So coming to the end and my initial thoughts and conclusion to this video, I'd like to start by saying this. Firstly, do I recommend this game? Well, it really just depends. Are you into single player games? Do you like sci-fi? Do you like being able to follow a not too complex storyline with some interesting elements to it? And are you willing to swallow that early access pill? Because that's the key one. This is early access. This does have bugs. This is not polished, and this is not a AAA title. If the answer to all of these things is yes, and you don't mind here and there occasionally a curveball being thrown by the game, then yeah, give it a go. In particular, if you really like sci-fi and RPG put together. this is for you. A couple of things like the voice acting being done and not quite complete, cutscenes not being in the game, if those things don't bother you, then you're fine. You're gonna enjoy this. The other side to this and the other element to this is you do need to have some patience to learn somewhat complex leveling systems. I wouldn't say it's the worst thing. I wouldn't say it's the best thing. It's just very different to your more traditional arcadey style games where you just level up and you just put 1 point in this and 1 point in that. After all, it is an RPG. And part of that also is because sometimes when a single person or a single sort of master of ceremonies is putting together a game, the UI and the elements that go into something like that might not be as polished as a AAA studio with, 20 people working in UX. So you do need to bear with some of those things. But for me, so far, money well spent. I mean, it was on special thanks to Space Fest, and I've definitely gotten more than an hour's worth of gameplay out of it, and I generally tend to put my value towards games in being, do I get more than an hour of enjoyment out of this game, and is it worth its hourly rate? Am I going to come back and play this game after I've closed it the first time? And the answer to all of these things was yes for me. So if this looks like it's up your alley, give it a crack and make sure to show the developers some love if you do enjoy it. I certainly will. And of course, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe. Feel free to check out some of my other videos where I look at similar or different interesting content and games. Till next time.